here.
Okay, all right. So what you can see here is the ArcGIS blank map, and what I'm going to do is I got a hold of a San Francisco network data set and got some places created in this and has some distribution centers in it as well. So let me just get the data that I created, and then I can start talking about the different steps of what the data looks like and how an analysis would look like. So here's the map of San Francisco downtown, and there's a bunch of other places on that. So there's stores. You can see the stores are put in as purple, and then, well, actually dark purple, and then there's this one pink DC, which is distributed to all of these different stores. Now, this facility or this distribution network has 3 trucks which operate. And then there's certain demand at each of these points in the store network. Go ahead, Amy.
Hold on 1 second. Something, we just lost something.
What's that one to the right on the bottom? Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. And we minimize just that one,
I
right?
don't think it.
You should be able to minimize that one right there. Yeah. No? I think you can. Okay.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah. I wonder if you just click on the behind stuff that puts in the back.
We're trying to get. We can only see part of the screen because the GoToMeeting screen is still up, blocking part of the map.
There we go.
There we go.
There we
go.
Okay.
And maybe that one expand. Yeah.
There we go. Okay, we're all set now.
Much better.
We're good now.
Okay. Okay. Great. So essentially, in ArcGIS, there's add-on. Essentially, it's an add-on with what it does is called Network Analyst. So you can see it's checked on. It doesn't come by default with ArcGIS, so it's an add-on that goes along with that. And what happens is it can do all kinds of different network analyses. So it can do routing, it can do scheduling. You can have auto pairs. So if you have students that need to get to school, so you have a student and an auto pair that you can combine. It can do facility analysis, so example where you need to have your facilities within the continental U.S. or anywhere in the world. So it can do all kinds of cool stuff. But what I'm really going to do today is talk about servicing a set of orders with a fleet of vehicles. So that's the whole point. And this one, you're seeing there's 25 grocery stores. Each store has a specific demand, and then each truck has a limited capacity of carrying the goods. So let's go ahead and get to the next step. And you can see the Network Analyst is already set up, and I'm going to do a new vehicle routing problem. And what it does is it loads the stores and it loads everything which I've already put in, which I've already mapped out on the map. So what I'm going to do next is load the orders in this problem. Okay. So on the left-hand side bottom, you'll see the window showed up, which is a Network Analyst window, and it's the vehicle routing problem. So I'm going to load locations, and yeah, so that showed up, and then I'm going to select the layer stores so I can map the orders to the stores. Okay, so I have a start window time, which essentially is time start, which is in that store table. So I already have that set up, which shows me what is the store name, what is the service time, how long does it take to process that store, and then I have an end time. So how long, or what's the time by which the store should be done processing. Now there's a whole bunch of other violations. For example, remember, Bob, we talked about this and Amy on the phone. You have a second window, and then you have a violation. Is that how much you can violate this? So if you say that if the window violation is 10 minutes, that's fine. So if it's plus minus 10 minutes outside the windows, you should be fine. For now, I'm just not going to put up anything. And then here's the delivery quantity, is how many items should be delivered, and that is a demand. So this is your store information on this end, And this is your actual analysis piece in the algorithm, or the how our GIS knows which things to look for. And then the data is loaded on in this end in the stores table right here. So this is what I'm requesting is, if you can give me these details, then I can pop them in that store detail, and then this can change for a day-to-day basis. For example, you may have a table for today, you may have a different table tomorrow, and so on. So now you can load these on a day-to-day basis and run this process every day. You can aggregate them out and consolidate information. So let me just move ahead. Any questions so far?
No.
Okay. So now there, as I said, there were 25 stores.
I thought I would just kind of give you an idea. Okay. Yeah, I was just going to say, on the different tables, it might be good for us to kind of discuss what we can provide, what we can't provide, and see what how much of an issue that is. I can certainly provide you with on the store orders table the name, the description. We have like receiving windows for each store, so we can probably supply that. And we've got like an average service time.
Okay.
For the violation time, we'd probably just have to put in some sort of a value, because we don't have anything.
Yeah, that really is your policy. I mean, you can say
For the most part, we don't
0,
have
that's
a
fine.
set number.
Yeah, I think for now you can set up as 0, and
Yeah,
that's fine, because I think,
service.
yeah, and once you get started out, you can say, okay, what are the max violations? So you can do a C accumulative saying that there's been a violation of 64 seconds or 64 minutes in this one single route, and then which is unacceptable. So now you can set standards saying the max violation we will take on is 30 minutes or anything of that kind on a single route. And now you're getting down to your service levels. So you can increase your service levels by increasing your transportation cost. But now you can say if it's okay for the store to receive it, maybe with a violation of half an hour, if they're flexible by that much, then the cost of overall transportation goes down, because now you can service more stores with that single asset. And then you can put limitations on the hours of service and so on, which I'll show you in a moment here. So I think if you don't have those constraints as of this point, that's really fine.
Okay.
Okay. So what happened on this left-hand edge was you see all the different stores. They were now mapped out on this map. Okay. So the next really, and then you can also see that there's this table of contents which will show you if there's any errors. For example, if there's an error in locating an order, then it'll show up as red. So if there's something red, then that means that really you could match up. There was some problems with really the data itself, and need to go back and take a look. So if there's a red, that means there's a time violation error and so on. So you can see there's many different kinds of visuals that will let you know that there's a problem with what's going on. Okay. So now we just added orders, and then the next step, what we'll do is we will load the depots. And the depot is kind of your distribution center, if you would. And in the depot, so again, I'm going to right-click on depots and then load locations. And it is already by default on the DC. So you can put in really in the description if it's a DC 1 or 2 and so on. And then if there's a start window, for example, the DC begins operations at a certain point. So you can put in default values at that point. So let's say 8 a.m. and then let's say it finishes up at, let's say, 5 p.m. And again, you have two, remember we talked about 2 windows. So if you had a break and you really don't do anything, but so you can put that kind of information in there as well. So that really is your DC, and then you're matching it up to that specific location. So once I do that, I've added depots, one depot, and it's by default, I think, named as San Francisco. So that's adding the depots. The next thing I'll do is add routes. So the routes really is the different trucks. And this is kind of like a one-time process. Once you set it up, once you set the parameters of the different trucks up, you do it one time, and then you can repeat. You don't have to do it every time. Okay. So I add item, and it brings up this properties window for the specific route. And what I'm going to do really in this one is add different properties. And this is one of the more important things in this, how you're setting it up. So really the first one is this is your truck 1, and literally you can put in saying license plate 4567, and then the depot which we added early on actually shows up here. So if you want to begin at one depot and end at a different one, you can do that in this window. So for now, what I'll say, it begins at the same depot and ends at the same depot. And then at the beginning of the day, let's say it takes 60 minutes to load the truck up. And then at the end of the day, let's say there is a 10-minute processing of that truck once it comes back, and then it begins at 8 o'clock. And also the latest start is also 8 o'clock. So I'm not keeping any differences there. That means as soon as, and then the latest, so that means it has to leave by that time, so on. There's a arrive depart delay, so what that means is if it is coming in, is there a delay that is there? I'm going to put in the capacity as 15,000, and this is pounds as of this point. Now, if you wanted to add 2 capacities to this one, you actually put in a space, and you say this has 3,000 cubic feet. So at this point, you're just saying the first one is your pounds, and the second one is your weight, your cubic footage. And then once you're putting your data in, you'll have to separate out the data in the same way. So it'll have your the pounds, and then it'll have the cubic footage. And then ArcGIS knows that the data where to look, the first one is your weight, and the second one is your cubic footage, so it'll know what to look at. So for now, I'm just going to put in 1 at this point. And now I'm going to put in a fixed cost. Actually, I'm not going to put in a fixed cost at this point because I'm going to do a per unit time. This is the how much the driver gets paid. So I've assumed at this point it's $12 an hour. So the wage is 12 divided by 60, which gives me 0.2. So it's 20 cents a minute. And the cost per distance, this is your maintenance charge. What that means is how much are you spending, on your maintenance of the vehicle itself. So I'm going to put in $1.50 for every mile. So this is your fuel consumption. This is your truck depreciation and maintenance and so on. And insurance, what do we need to put in? Now at this point, on this specific scenario, I'm not going to put in an overtime. I will show you if there's interest in which you can actually do overtime on that one. And then if you are over the overtime, which is your regular time, how much you're paying on that one. And then this truck can do a max of 10 orders, so that means 10 stores. And I can put in a max of total time, so that means they can, and I'm putting in 6 hours. The total time is 360 minutes, 6 hours. And the maximum travel distance is 80 miles, so that they're not driving as much, if you will. I'm sorry, the max total travel time is actually 120, so they're not driving more than 120 minutes or 2 hours. And then the total distance they're traveling is 80 miles. And then I'm going to really not do anything else with that. I mean, you can actually put in more detail. Now, anything you see grayed out will be updated once you solve the route. It'll show you what's the cost, if there was overtime, the drive time, and it'll give you actually a route description of how the route goes and so on. And I'll talk about some of those other pieces as well, but let me just look at a simple distribution of orders at this point with those parameters. Any questions before I move on and add the second and the third truck to this?
Yes. Always. what on that list right there is required? Because I'm looking at what you just filled in. We have some of it. Other stuff we don't have. So I'm trying to see what we'd be able to supply to you. So for instance, I'm looking at the start and end service time.
Okay.
The earliest start time, the latest start time. I don't know if we would have any of that. We would have the depot's hours, but it might just be like a, an 8-hour window, shipping window. I wouldn't have it for a specific route or a specific truck or lane or asset.
Okay. Well, this is more specific to
So I'm
a
wondering
truck.
how much
So
the time on here is.
Yeah, this is more specific to a truck. So I put it in, but you could keep that as blank, and it won't affect the actual outcome of the solver.
Okay. We would definitely put capacity, and we put some of the product cost.
Okay.
Okay.
The
yeah,
cost
just some of the
unit
times on all of these tables that we wouldn't necessarily have. Yeah.
Okay. And as I said,
time we have very little data on.
Yeah, I understand that data won't be available, a lot of that. And I assume that it won't be. So I think in this specific scenario, the 8 a.m. is a default. So that means the warehouse opens at 8 o'clock, and then everything is ready to go at that 8 o'clock. Some trucks may need some more prep work. For example, if you have a reefer truck, and let's say the people came in at 7 o'clock, and then it started up, it has to get up to maybe, like, say, -5 before you can actually start loading it. So in those cases, you can actually put your specific assets in and say, okay, the earliest start is 8 o'clock, but maybe it's 7 o'clock. So even though the DC doesn't open up, then there's certain wait. So now this software will actually calculate how much time was spent waiting for it to be loaded on. So now you can do empty analysis is what's the utilization of your assets long term.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to hit OK, and what it does is you see it automatically change that route 1 to truck. And the cool thing about this is I can just copy and paste. I can paste, and then I can actually go into properties and then just change it to, let's say, truck 2. And as of this point, I'm just going to keep all the different properties same. So it's maybe just change the license plate number to be something different. So it knows, and then so that's truck 2, and then again go into the properties of that other one, truck 3. And again, as I said, this is a one-time thing. Once you set these assets up, they can be reused over and over again. Okay, so now what I've done is I've loaded the orders on. I have a depot ready to go. I did put on the truck types. And the next thing that I want to do is set up the actual routing problem. And then you see that button right there, the vehicle routing problem properties. I want to set up what are my parameters within which I want to solve this problem. So, and it has actually quite a few attributes. The one that I really want to get to is the settings. Now, keep in mind that I've already set up the network data set. So what that means is that the one-way restrictions, any turns which are restricted for trucks, any overpasses, for example, the truck cannot go underneath a certain pass and so on. If there's certain time restrictions, actually the time restriction is not there, but you can actually add time restrictions that the truck can only enter this part of the city between 4 and 6 p.m. and so on. So the restriction which you see right here, you can add more. It is just built on the base network. So if the data set has to be built, and actually the most time-consuming piece of this setting up is the data set. The analysis is as good as the base data. Okay, so let me go ahead and look at each one of the attributes. So I want to make sure that the time attribute is set to travel time in minutes, that one. And the reason it's minutes is because everything I entered in the route was in minutes. So if you entered hours there, this should be changed. Actually, it is minutes all the way through. So the distance attribute is meters. now you can set it up for a specific day. For example, if it's a route that runs every Monday, you can run that. Actually, you can also do it for a specific date. Is you can set something in the future, and you can set it up so it's a specific date. Remember the capacities that I talked about, the 15,000 or 3,000? The first one was pounds, and the second one was cubic footage. So now I can put 2 in here, and the moment I put 2 in here, ArcGIS will look for 2 attributes. So it'll look for weight, it'll look for cubic footage, and then if you put something else, actually if I put 3 in there, you can actually have 3 different attributes. I did ask another person on this one saying how many capacity counts. They said that they've known people to go up as much as 4. Once you get into 4 and 5, the process time becomes significantly more CPU intensive. So I think for this one, I'm just going to keep it 1 as of this point. And then it's minutes, so that means I'm going to compute everything in minutes. The distance feed is miles. The U-turns and junctions, I'm not going to allow that. Trucks have a difficult time making U-turns, so no U-turns. The other piece is how do you want the display to show up? Do you want to show the shape of the actual route, or you want to show straight lines? So here's that option right here. So I'm going to do true shape with measures. And you see the hierarchy. Hierarchy is which restriction gets precedence. So that means one way is precedence number 1, and the restricted turn is number 2. And actually you can have a whole bunch of other restrictions. For example, height on the highways. You can have angle of turns. You can do speed limits. So again, as I said, it is as good as the base data. Or for this one, I don't have as extensive data right now, but this could really be populated, and then it could really become an extensive process. Anyway, so I think I'm all set with the analysis setting as of this point, and I'm just going to hit OK and then solve this problem, if you would. So apply, OK, and then you see the solve on this one. So now it's essentially computing all of those routes, and now you can see it has those 3 different routes which are now being serviced. Let me just go back and change a couple of things so it's a little easier to see. So routes right here. I'm going to print on those properties symbology. So I have all the 3 different trucks added on, and why? Okay, so they're now different colors. I'm just going to make them actually. Let me just do one last thing here. I don't want the main layer to show up. Click on that, make it 4, maybe 5. That's good. So now the 3 routes all set out. So you can see the red one going towards the east. You have a yellow one, which is more south. And then you can see that the DC is kind of right here at number 10. And if I wanted to get the directions on each of those, I can click on the main route and get directions. It'll give me directions for Route 1, Route 2, and you can see there's at the end, there's a total time, total distance, start time, end time, and so on. And then it'll show you which stores it also serviced. So that essentially is a quick way to optimize the network. Now, if there were violations, then there's no violations, because when I set the data up, I made sure that there were no violations, but you can exceed the violations by really going into the truck and the properties, and you say, gee, this is really a small truck, so do 5,000, hit OK, solve, and now there may be violations. So, yeah, so there were some violated constraints, and then you see those stores left out. and it's a little different bit of a store as well. So truck 1 really isn't of much use at this point because the capacity of that truck is really not enough to meet the capacities of all the routes. Any questions on that, on what I just showed you?
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
Good. Want me to move on?
I like how it's still roasted, even if it doesn't have,
Yeah, doesn't just give you infeasible ones.
just give you infeasible like what we've experienced.
Yeah, it's giving an infeasible. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, it'll tell you once you do the. Actually, let me just do a property at each one. So I know that truck 1, even though it is running for a short amount of time, it doesn't tell you that there's not enough. But once you open up the properties of each truck, now you can see that, okay, now there's something going on. So you can see how many orders it put on, the total cost, the regular cost, since there's no overtime, the distance cost, the total time, the total order service time. So it'll give you all kinds of details, what time it begins, what time it ends. So so there's overall, even if there was some time constraints which are violated, but actually it doesn't tell you that. So you need to pick up that which route is giving a problem. Now you can get more advanced. This is just a simple solver. You can set up seed points in different areas. So let's say the person who's operating the blue truck really doesn't want to go in the west side. So now you can actually set up seed points saying that driver really needs to be assigned to the south side and they don't want to go in that direction. So now you can say, I can set up truck 1 to really be focused on the south section rather than the west and so on. So now you can set up even more advanced, I guess, algorithms in there which can help you do something. Okay.
Cool.
So let's set that back to 15,000. Now, how much time do I have?
Oh, you have plenty of time.
What time is it? I'm at
Okay.
30.
30, right? So, yeah.
We have plenty of time.
Okay. I didn't know because we began late. I'm sorry about that. But I wanted to show you 2 more scenarios. So let's take another scenario here. Let's say that truck number 2, the driver went on vacation, and or maybe it was under maintenance, and now you actually don't really have that truck driver available so that they can take the truck on. So the truck number 2 is out of action for some time, and now you need to figure out how you can do the deliveries for the rest of the stores with the 2 trucks that you already have. You may have to pay some overtime, but then you need to figure out how much overtime, how much time, what's your service level, and so on. So if you had to figure that thing out. So let's go ahead and delete truck number 2 from here. So delete that person, gone. So I only have truck 1 and 3 in service, and now all the different stores, how would I go about doing that? Okay, so, and then this company also, what it did was it acquired 2 renewal facilities. So what that means is you have stock-up points. So this could also be thought of as one of these stores needs something from a store which they don't have. So now you can set up stores as renewal points. Or maybe it could be an outside DC. For example, companies would take on more DC space and they'll say, okay, we need to replenish the stores. Here's a seed point. So now you can do more sophisticated analysis based on that. So I'm going to put in a seed point in this problem, and how I'm going to do is I go back to my depots, okay, and in the depots, what I need to do is find a location. I'm sorry, find addresses, and in the addresses, I need to find out a place which this company has already found, which is at 800 Brush Street. And then you can see that already it found that address, and the reason it did was I have an address locator. So it's kind of a geocoding service which adds the locator right away. My son is here. And then I add that as a network analysis object, so that gets added on as a depot. And this company has another depot which they would like to add, which is at 100 Old County Road. Find and add that as a network analysis. So now you can see that I've added these two more DCs here. And what I would like to do is, those are my seed points. Those are not actual DCs, but they may go there, and you can see that one of them is right here, and then the other one on the map is right here, off on the other side. Okay, so now I've added the depots, and they become your renewal points. So what I'm going to do is, in the route renewal, add an item, and this depot name, it will go to the first depot, and the truck 1 will go there, and let's say the service time is 30 minutes. So I've assigned truck 1 to go to that one, and I'm adding another one in which I have, again, the same one. The route is truck 1, and it takes you 30 minutes. Okay. Oh, did I do that twice? Okay, change that. So that's actually for truck number 3. So truck number 1 will go there, and then you have truck number 3, which will go there as well. And then I'm adding item in which my fresh street will go to truck 1, and the service time is again another 30 minutes. And then add last one, which again to the brush street. The route name is number 3, and the service time is 30 minutes. So now I've added those 2 renewal points in that sequence. So whenever they run out of capacity, they just go there, they pick up some stock, whichever is nearest. They can go here or here, and then they'll optimize that as a network. Okay, questions on that? All good, okay. So what I'm going to do now is, since I have only 2 trucks left, I need to modify some properties when I originally put them in. What I'm going to do is now these trucks will have an overtime. So essentially, you can see that the overtime start time is 360. That means after 6 hours, they start getting paid overtime. And the overtime is $18 an hour. So it's going to be 0.3. It was, I'm sorry, 0.3. So it was 0.2, and now it's 0.3. So that's the 0.2 for the regular. This is 0.3. But now it can take on almost 20. So it can, instead of just 10 orders, it can take on 20. And then I'm going to take out the limit on the max time. There's no restriction on the travel time, and there's no distance restriction as well. Okay. So I've just added, in this one, I've added 360, which is when the overtime begins, the cost overtime per unit per minute, and the number of orders that a truck can pick up. And then I have the capacity. I've kept everything the same. Hit OK. Do the same for truck number 3. So overtime is 360, 0.3. The max order count is 20. Keep that, and hit OK. So now I'm going to service all the stores trying to do with these 2 trucks by paying overtime. So let's go and hit solve. Oh, actually, hold on. I need to add one more thing to this one. I need to add breaks to this process. So I go to break, okay, and I add an item, and then the property window opens up for the break. So I'm assigning a break from, let's say, 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. And what I'm saying is that this belongs to truck 1, and the service time is 30 minutes. They can take a break of 30 minutes. They can begin anywhere in that window. Okay, and then there's a max violation, which means that you can violate that. So there's no violation. That means the truck driver has to take the brake in that time sequence. So if it's not, if it has a violation, it'll tell you there's a violation. And now, is the brake paid? Yes or no? So this is true that it is a paid brake. And hit OK. So that's truck number 1 has a brake. The only thing I need to do is add a brake for truck number 2. Now this is the only cumbersome piece about this, is it doesn't allow you to do one brake unit and then assign it to many different trucks. So you have to go through the whole list and do it all at a time. I've actually called Esri and said, why is it this way? So they said they took a new ticket from me. They said we'll look at it on a future release. So maybe they'll work on it. Anyway, so 30 minutes and max violation is 0, and then it's paid true. So this is what truck number 3. So I have the 2 brake setup for the 2 trucks. Go ahead.
I just had a question. Because I noticed a lot of this is done in forms. Is there a way to, because obviously our data is going to be lists of data. Is that, are you going to be manually entering forms with that, or is there a way to import method? You know what I mean?
What I'm going to do is write a script. So what happens is, depending on how the data comes in, if it's a text file, let's say it's a CSV or a tab separated, what I'll do is write a script. When you're sending the data to me, if you can send me how the data is usually dumped, it's a CSV text file, it's a SQL dump, whatever kind of a dump it is. What happens is once you have a dump and you run the batch file, it'll take all that data and pull it into ArcGIS.
Okay.
So the script
is there a particular format that is easier for you?
Text file is fine. I think if you have
that?
a CSV, which is good. If you have Excel, that should be fine too. Go ahead, Amy, you had a question?
Okay.
No, we just didn't hear.
Okay.
Actually, I do have one other question.
Yeah,
how
go ahead.
How is it calculating the transit times? I haven't seen anything that says the actual vehicle speed or anything like that.
That's all based on the network data set, and it's the base data, and as I said, that's the most difficult piece of this whole project, is building a really high quality data set. There's some commercial quality available, which probably costs like $10,000–$15,000 to rent, but the one that I have is not that exact same quality of like a commercial build, but there's ways and means to build a base network, and what the base network is, it'll tell you you're going from, let's say, Belfast to Portland. Here's these 15 segments, the speed limit on each one, and then it has the speed limit for each segment, the length of each segment. If it has one-way restrictions, it has turn restrictions, height restrictions, surface of the road, and so on. So, I mean, you can really get into detail. You can talk about traffic conditions on a specific route. I think Bob and Amy were talking about this, is you can actually get some of that public data if it has the lat and long of where the data has been collected from. You can actually overlay it on top of your network data set. And it's actually a live feed. What that means is you can link this as a live feed on your data. So as you're running the scenarios, it will tell you that this is not a good time to ship because there's a historical data set which says that at this time there's going to be a huge amount of congestion and so on. So the whole base has to be built. And I think that's the most time-consuming piece of this project. I have built some of it for the state of Maine. And again, building that would be a big thing. The other alternative to building this network data set is within ArcGIS. They have a service. They have ready-to-use service. Let me see. in which you can actually buy credits so that you
So
don't
you
have
have
to
that
actually
data
build
set
the data
from
set.
Maine?
Go ahead. But I didn't get the question.
You have that data set for the state of Maine, you said? Or for
Yes,
some
I
part
have
of
built
Maine?
it up. Yeah, for some part of Maine, I have built it out. And as I said, I'm building that whole data set because a lot of the data, there's these commercial versions. For example, TomTom has one, and Esri has one. There's NavTUQ, which is now a Nokia. Used to be Nokia, but now Microsoft. And they just recently changed their name, so they have a version. But what I'm trying to build myself is go to the public data sets and then build it off from there, which does take some time because I have to go in and make sure that each and every set is the right data. So it's not proofread as much as a commercial data set would be.
So I wonder if that would limit some of the projects that we've discussed where, especially like we were talking about the Philadelphia area for hub and spoke, or we had different areas of the country, and I'm wondering if it limits us on those projects.
Well, it will not for now, and the reason I'm saying that is the thing that I was just talking about is credits. So ArcGIS, what they do is they sell credits. So as an educational institution, we have like 2,000 credits. So what that means is I don't need to build the data set, or I don't need to buy the data set. But let's say I just did this calculations and I had 25 stores in 3 routes. So that's, let's say 25 credits. I use up 25 credits. So that's less than $2.50 to run that simulation. So as I'm running these different scenarios, I'm using up credits, so which can be a less expensive way of managing this process. And as I said, I was just looking for a proof of concept early on, and then once it was proven and up and running, as I said, I have access to almost 2,000 or 3,000 credits, which I was hoping to use really for this project.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Spoil our being.
Which projects we
I'm sure.
prioritize.
Okay.
So I am trying to build a network data set for the state of Maine. I'm about 50 way through. I have to actually literally go in and each and every junction and make sure that the data is right. So I have a Google map and I actually have open source map, and I'm comparing the 2 options as I'm going through. So I'm actually cleaning up the data. So there are some problems with the data, but I'm in the process of getting that cleaned up and having it up and ready, at least for the state of Maine.
That sounds like something to assign to students.
Yeah.
Extra credit. Doesn't it?
I have a class this fall, and
It's time to value
data.
down
Yeah.
by T's.
Yeah, and actually I found a way that it is time consuming in the sense that if you have a really dense network and you're trying to match the public data with what it actually is, because now you can have connects on different layers. So if you have a highway, let's say on the ground level, and then you have an overpass, and then you have an overpass over an overpass, and then you have another one. Once you get into New York or some of these other places, you have actually 4 overpasses. So the ground level would be 0, the second level would be 1, and then the third level would be 2, the third level would be 4, or the fourth level would be 4, or third. And then you have to make sure that you're connecting the right lines, otherwise virtually truck would fall off in a virtual environment when you're running these scenarios. So yeah, so the simulation is as good as the base network data set in a sense. Okay. Any more questions on that?
Nope.
Okay, so I just solved this last scenario in which I only have now 2 trucks servicing all the stores, and you can see with overtime I am able to service all the trucks, and I can go and take a quick look at the directions for each one, and it will tell me what's going on. And you can see that it does tell me there's a time violation of 9 minutes. So the time window was 8 to 5. The service time at the end was 10 minutes, and then it did go over by 9 minutes. So for that specific one. And then for truck number 3, you can see again there's more properties that you can look at. You can say how many orders were on that, the total cost, regular cost, and so on. Now, this really becomes a powerful tool as you're doing this data collection. I'm sure you do this right now, but now you can include your violations, your time windows, how many windows were met actually, and so on. Okay. I can go on if you guys want, but you can set up seeds. So if one driver really doesn't want to go on the other end, I can set up a seed point on one of the routes. Excuse me, and then it'll tell you which direction the truck needs to go and so on. Do you want me to go ahead? Because this is the main portion of the thing that I was hoping to show you guys. But I can show you the seed point is for truck 1 and 3, and then I can geocode addresses, and you could say, okay, this truck stays in this location, and so on. Okay, so let me go ahead and right-click on.
Yeah, we don't really.
Because this really comes into play when you were talking
We
about
don't have any seeds.
the crossed off.
We have depots, that's about it. Yeah.
I know it's something we're looking at maybe in the future, but right now I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, if you have drivers who have a preference saying, oh, gee, I would really like to go, I like to deliver to this specific route, and then you want the software to be assigning them to that specific route without actually messing up the whole system. Now you can create seed points. So what that means is you have a preference of gravitating towards that, even though the cost may be a little higher, but it doesn't mess up the whole network. Okay. So I'm going to find a seed point, and I've already, when I did this, it is 278 Avenue, and I add that as a seed point, and then I want to add, actually let me get out of that, and then I've added that as a network point. Click on that and go to properties, and then I can say that this is assigned to truck number 1. So that's right there, that seed point. So truck number 1 has a preference of being in this region, and hit OK. So now that is my seed point, and then I find another address, and this one happens to be 1888. Find that point. It is actually on the other side. I add that as an object, and you can see it's on that side. So there's one here, and go to properties, and this one is assigned to truck number 3. So after I've done this, I can hit solve. Oh, so it didn't really change much. Huh, I wonder why. I'll have to look at that why it didn't change, because usually it'll take that piece, which is this down here, and actually shift to that end. But there's not much on that end, so and then what it'll do is it'll give up some of these territories to this other one. Wonder why. Anyways, I'll figure that one out. But I think that was about all that I wanted to talk about. So any questions for me that you guys have? Is this something that you think would be helpful?
Do you mind
to you
sending us a quick email?
Sending you what?
Do you mind sending us a quick email with just a quick email with our project list, the ones that you wanted, that you think you could tackle first, the low-hanging fruit there?
Yeah, I will send that, and actually, I will send. I recorded this